Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I am so grateful to have Peter Hoppenfeld today with us to talk about the do's and don'ts of testimonials and reviews as it relates to the FTC. Peter Hoppenfeld is widely recognized as the go-to attorney and advisor in the representation of direct marketers, speakers, authors, information marketers, thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and domestic and international training companies and their founders in all aspects of their legal and business affairs. Peter is a seasoned transactional commercial attorney with direct marketing, internet marketing, distribution, licensing, marketing, branding, and operational expertise. On a daily basis, Peter helps authors, speakers, entrepreneurs, business owners, and thought leaders create effective marketing, merchandising, and expansion strategies. His mission is to rapidly, smartly, and strategically grow people's businesses, reach, and revenues. Peter has been described as a lawyer who understands marketing and a marketer who happens to be a lawyer. So I hope you enjoyed this interview. Hey, Peter, thank you so much for being on here with us today. Really excited to hear your perspective on testimonials, reviews, and everything that's going on with the FTC, the do's and don'ts for people as they're collecting social proof for their businesses.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
You know, you've been around the block for quite some time and you've been doing a lot of marketing. Can you share with us a little bit at the very high level, like why does the FTC even care about all this?
So you have to view the Federal Trade Commission as being kind of like a paternalistic, regulatory body that's protecting people against their worst impulses. Marketers tend to push buttons to get people to do things, to convert. And that conversion could be to click, to look, or to buy. I've been involved in marketing both as a lawyer and a strategist for going on 40 years. And I go way beyond before the internet and before the fax machine. And the strategies used to get people to do things remain the same. And depending on the aggressiveness, I'll see a press release from the Federal Trade Commission talking about the latest crackdown on something, and the story is the same story I heard 30 years ago. People taking advantage of their position in front of an audience or a consumer, pushing buttons to people who may or may not be able to understand that they might be manipulated, and the Federal Trade Commission steps in and makes rules to protect people against their worst impulses to buy or to click. And, sometimes clients will say to me, well, what is it that puts me on the radar screen, so to speak? And I always give basically the same answer. Number one, you're marketing to a group of people who traditionally the regulatory bodies, whether it be Federal Trade Commission or state attorney generals, feel need help in protecting themselves, like senior citizens. Or there's been an outbreak, so to speak, in a particular niche type of program that has been nothing but trouble. And they have a task force looking with a broad brush of anybody in that space, like in the last 4 or 5 years, heavy use of earnings or income claims have been under serious scrutiny. And 4 or 5 years ago, that started with a Raging Bull case about focusing on financial publishers or newsletter companies. But it rears its head in now training companies or people trying to, selling offers to make money opening a store on Amazon. In the health and wellness space, similar things get painted with a big brush. About 7, 8, 9 years ago, there was a green coffee carcinogen offer, and it was a bad one. And even people with a good one had a problem because it was under scrutiny. And then, of course, if you're just not a good citizen, a lot of chargebacks, refunds, complaints, all those things tend to get the FTC's attention. They also like good headlines. If you go to ftc.gov, there's always a press release. And that press release always tells a story. And many times I agree with that story. And I represent clients who are trying to be compliant. And I think the FTC acting in a rational manner with appropriate targets of people who have done people wrong is a correct use of their authority.
So we know today there are headlines with Amazon, for example, that are employing 12,000, at least 12,000 full-time employees just tracking down fake reviews, and there are reports from consumers having a certain level of mistrust when it comes to Google reviews and Yelp, up to like 80% of mistrust. As a good human citizen and running a decent business, what should we do to be able to prove social proof? What should we watch out for? What are some good practices?
So let's start with why this scrutiny is happening. It's happening because there were a good number of marketers who created their own review sites. They created sites of reviews of their own product, and they were bogus. And then what happens is the direct marketing, digital marketing world are a bunch of copycats. If it converts for so-and-so, I'm going to do it. So all of a sudden, stars appeared everywhere. It's similar to the testimonial rule that we'll talk about. People would take reviews from one product or service, and they would use them again for the next new product or service, which has nothing to do with prior experience. Ultimately, good social proof in the form of either an influencer or a good, relatable consumer works. And it should work. Where I see problems is that marketers can't leave good enough alone. Okay? You ultimately want to push someone's button to do something, to click, to read, to do, but marketers tend to take a hammer and they want to smash the crap out of the button. They just don't know when to stop. And that's what happens. And we reach a crisis and rules get made. So there's rulemaking on review sites. Similarly, 12 years ago, there was rulemaking about testimonials. And it happens niche by niche, step by step. And look, regulators are, technologically idiots. If you've ever watched a congressional hearing with a bunch of 80-year-old old men who don't know how to turn a phone on, but they're regulating tech, it takes a while for it to catch up. But by the same token, marketers tend to exploit new technologies faster than regulators can watch them. So shame on all of us.
So talk to me a little bit, because in previous conversations, you and I talked about the new regulations and then also being able to show typicality.
Well, it's not so new. It's just not understood. How about that? So the testimonial rule and endorsement rule was passed, it became law about 12 years ago or so. At the time, it used to be, I would say, I flipped 15 houses in 90 days. Results not typical, yours may vary. Safe harbor. Okay? I lost 10 pounds in 2 days. Results not typical, yours may vary. Numeric, quantifiable claims, money making, weight loss, things like that. The FTC also was at a time early in the use of digital endorsers in blogs, for example, reviewing products, where influencers, celebrities, this is way before anybody knew anything about a micro-influencer or anything else, would review a product, give it a glowing review, but they were also getting it for free or they were getting paid for the endorsement. I say to my clients, be a consumer. You'd rather know that that review about a product is unaffected by money or otherwise. And if it is, disclose it. So here's where we are 12, 13 years ago. A lot of testimonials are being used, and there are those big walls of fame, okay? And the FTC just determined that unless you showed what a typical result was, these were all cherry picking, and this was fantasy land, and people were being harmed. Similarly, at the beginning of digital endorsements or reviews, the feeling was the public should know if that reviewer is being influenced or impacted by money or a gift.
Is that the $100 level though? Isn't there $100 like? No,
I personally tell my clients, if there's any consideration being passed for a review, disclose it. Paid endorser, partner, advertisement. As a practical matter, the public knows, or they ignore disclaimers. Trust me, they do. I'd rather err on the side of disclosure. On the testimonial side, the FTC's rule says, if you want to give that type of testimonial, we're not talking about, I love Dan's product, it was life-changing, it was wonderful, great content, I learned so much. No. I made X dollars, I lost X pounds, I lost X inches, I flipped X houses, my rate of return increased, I did this with an investment. Those kind of numbers. If you want to use them, you need to be able to show what the typical result is for a consumer or buyer of that program. Because what was also happening, and is happening now, is that marketers would take results from a prior program, testimonials from a prior course or program or product, and use it for the new one. So like. Well, back in the day, many marketers would say, the typical result is that nobody even opens up my book. They don't even look at the training program. And I would say to people, you're out of your mind. It means you're giving zero value to your work, what you're selling. At the time, it was really easy for a number of companies to show typicality. Weight Watchers, the weight loss companies, people are weighing in. Look at the fine print of Weight Watchers or Jenny Craig or whatever. It's there. How many pounds of weight how many pounds you could expect to lose. I have had my clients do surveys, and we disclose them. You need to be able to show typicality if asked. I have my clients disclose them and put it on a tab on their website. And we do regular surveys, and we show what the typical customers' results are for that program, okay, in percentage and number. And we do it regularly, and we add the next disclosure on top of the first disclosure, and full transparency. But the other thing that was very interesting is that we also would ask quality or customer assurance questions. And some clients felt, I only want to ask 4 questions. I have my limited time. I'm asking the financial questions. Others said, let's do a deep dive. And when you can get a customer to say, or get 98% of your customers to say they would recommend this product or service to their friends or family, that's more effective than I flipped 3 houses. And we've proven that out. That's what we've been doing. I've been doing with my clients. And we publish them on a website next to the privacy policy and the terms of service. Whatever other disclaimers are in footers, we add a tab, testimonial support. And Dan, when you say, I lost 15 pounds in 30 days, we say, results not typical, yours may vary. For typicality, see our testimonial support page. And that's compliant. If I'm paying you as a micro-influencer $1,500 to post 3 Instagram posts, it's going to say sponsored or paid endorser or brand partner or ad or all of it. And then the great dilemma is, when the rule was promulgated, there was no Snapchat and there was no TikTok. And there was no foresight about the limitation of the number of digits you have. But we work with it. Same thing with advertorials or native ads. You got to be clear that it's not real, that you're writing it, it's sponsored.
With Share One, we basically are more of like a video production company, right? So we'll get their clients to show up for a 20, 30-minute interview, and we ask them questions about, where they were before the service or products and what their experience was and whether they would recommend it. And, we edit it down to maybe 2 or 3 minutes of, it's almost like a video story.
What's interesting is the FTC's rule, when you read it carefully, talks about that the audience should understand that this testimonial is not typical. Okay? So I love longer form case studies, for example, because then you know that person, where that person came from, what their expertise was, what they were looking for, what they got themselves into, what they did to get results, so that the consumer watching this video goes, oh, I understand. I can relate to that person, but I'm a little different, so I wonder what will happen in my path. So it's not just so black and white. So I would recommend to many of your clients, they should consider 2 versions of each testimonial. The longer form 10-minute one and the shorter one for 2 minutes, where you then say, I think you may have seen, there's a lot of the hospitals were doing stories trying to promote themselves, and they would tell it to have a 30-second heartwarming story, and it would then say, to learn more about Jim's journey at blah, blah, blah hospital, go to blank. and you'd see a 20-minute story. And I think that's a very effective way to be fully transparent to the audience about why these testimonials are being given and where the results come from. It's not just magic.
Can you give a little bit of a warning? I think there was a press release just last year, and I know the FTC puts out a lot of press releases. They're starting to really crack down and finding people.
Yeah, oh, they're doing more than finding people.
Okay.
So what they've done is procedurally, they have been sending warning letters to companies they know could conceivably be violating rules, like about earnings income claims, for example, which goes across, multi niches. And it's basically warning people, if you violate, this can happen. And by sending those warning letters out, it shortcuts procedurally how they can bring an action. They are watching, there are filters, they are looking at digital presence, okay? Amazon is very much the eyes and ears of the FDA when it comes to, disease claims involving supplements. Amazon's the biggest seller of marketplace of supplements and ingestibles and nutritionals in the world. So despite all the work that many of my clients go through and your clients go through and setting up video sales letters to sell supplements, they still have the Amazon store. And trust me, the Amazon store is doing really well. But Amazon looks at product descriptions, and it is in some ways more rigid than you would think it would be. But it is the eyes and ears of the FDA, and I've had clients experience that. I think it still comes down to the most extreme situations bring the most extreme enforcement. And if you are trying to be substantially in compliance, you tend to have less of a problem. I give this example all the time. You could be on a scale of 0 to 10. You could be 0% compliant. You want to make a lot of money and run, and you will be chased, okay? 10 being 100% compliant, there is no one who's 100% compliant. Because if you're 100% compliant, you won't sell anything. Most of my clients, and I read copy every day. That's part of my practice, my business. And I can give a client a sense of where they are on the compliance scale. And most of my clients tend to be between a 7 and an 8.5. And that's pretty good. And if an FTC investigator looks at a landing page, a video sales letter, and they see the attempt to be a good citizen, like showing typicality of testimonials, like not having fake 5 stars, like having real terms and conditions, like having a checkout page that is compliant, like telling people how they turn the auto ship off, they will tend to view you as someone who's trying as opposed to someone who's just going to make money and run. It
Right.
makes a difference.
So I'd love to chat with you a little bit. And again, the last regulation from the FTC was over a decade ago, AI, right? So today it's like AI can generate reviews, and then with even AI video, HeyGen, and all these platforms, to me, it kind of scares me a little bit, especially having younger kids and what era they're going to live into in terms of believing, like what is true anymore,
Well,
right?
the first thing I want to point out is that powered by AI has become a sales pitch as opposed to necessarily being real. So every headline is AI driven, even though it may not be. That's number one. Number two, AI has been part of a lot of our technology for years. It is now just more available to the common folk, all right, and for use on a regular basis. I know a lot of copywriters who are very nervous about their careers. As someone who reads a lot of copy, you still got to teach the AI machine how to be persuasive and how to write. So I think there's always a place for good writers. Now, I've had this debate with leaders of many very large direct response digital marketing companies where we talk about really good copy. We talk about really creative ways to present a product or service. Brian Kurtz and I are old friends from boardroom days, and we always talked about the science of direct response and having artful, well thought out, literate copy. There's only one problem. Formulaic copy works. Formulaic copy isn't elegant, Okay. Given my druthers, I'd rather read a better story and see a bit more literacy, but formulaic copy works. And AI can duplicate formulaic copy. And I'll give you an example. Okay. What's formulaic copy? Formulaic copy in the health and wellness space. This is it. There's a problem. A lot of people have the problem. I'm an expert about the problem. I've seen thousands of people about this. I wanted to solve the problem. These 5 ingredients do X, Y, and Z. Let the audience put the five together to solve this health problem because they can't make a health claim. Okay? Our manufacturing is better than everybody else's. Okay? You need it. It's less than a cup of coffee. Oh, by the way, if you buy 4, you get 2 free. Hurry up, buy now. Done. Guess what? It's ugly. It works. Oh, on the training site. Oh, get this bonus. It's worth $495. Get this bonus. Get this bonus. Get this bonus. But today only the $15,000 of bonus. It's $49. That tends to kind of go against my sensibilities. But I'm not the buyer. But it works.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, an AI-driven copywriter can do that.
Maybe you have some advice for us. Well, we trademarked for humans by humans.
I love that.
And we want to say that, everything that we record represents a true human experience, right? It's not AI generated, and it's typically there's no paid endorsers or anything like that. Do you feel like there's room for some kind of authentic platform where people can see true stories?
I think there's always going to be room for it. And I tend to like unicorns and rainbows, but I still believe that genuine marketing works best. I'm always faced with clients who come to me and they've taken all the various, guru courses, or they've gone to the big marketing event, and this person is telling them to do this and that person is telling them to do that. And they've been to this mastermind and they've heard from this one and they don't know whether this, and then they go, what should I do? And I tell them all the time, do what you're comfortable with and do it well. So if there's a little piece of this guru that you like, and this program that you like, and that program that you like, and that you don't think you're comfortable being on video, but you're okay being recorded, then put together and synthesize your approach that's genuine. And when you're genuine, you will be able to deliver your message in a way that your audience will respond to. And more often than not, I'm right. And many of them became the next leader with the next approach. Everything tends to be derivative of the next, but I think ultimately being genuine will stand out out beyond the same old flat AI.
Sure, absolutely. So for those of you,
in other words, keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks. So for those of you listening to this interview, and if you're using reviews on your website, strongly encourage you to explore this typicality and what Peter's mentioning in terms of the fine print of the testimonial study. So Peter, can you share with the listeners real quick, if they are looking for this type of typicality report, how can you help them?
Well, I would be glad. I wrote a white paper on the testimonial rule many years ago, and I'm glad to make it available to anybody who wants it. In terms of sample surveys, I'd be glad to share some sample survey questions. In terms of the disclosure themselves, I could anonymize some things, but it really depends on what the client is doing. But I think, the rule of thumb is if you have testimonials where people are giving quantifiable results, you need to be able to show typicality. And unless you have a clearinghouse of data, and I do have clients who collect data. They have a portal where clients are reporting sales or leads, or, they're weighing in that data. Then that's great. You have the basis of showing typicality. Synthesize it. If you don't, reach out to your audience. And it's an interesting process, Dan, because I've had clients, it's sometimes a test of likability or connection. Mm-hmm. Or I might have one client that sends out a survey and they have thousands of customers and they get 200 responses. But I have another client with a really engaged community, and in 3 days they have 2,000 responses. And so I think there's something to be learned from all of that. Sometimes working on compliance can make you really understand what your customer experience is. Because it's not just one thing that makes you compliant or non-compliant. It's not just the words you say. It's how you treat your people. It's how they feel in the sales process. It's how they feel afterwards. It's how they feel when they have a problem and they want a response. It's how long it takes for you to get to them. It's having a phone number. Oh my God. All those things work together to alleviate complaints, and complaints generate inquiries. It shows that you're trying to reasonably comply and be a good citizen. It works. It matters.
So for those of you listening, we're going to put in the description below links to some press releases and also some of the white papers that Peter's mentioning, and resources for you to be able to prove typicality if you're making claims that involve numbers specifically.
Yeah, and just know the FTC, and I'll give them, you'll have the link, I'm sure, Dan, has business resource guides on ftc.gov that are really well done. And there are things there about advertising online that you should read. And they give examples, like real life examples.
Peter, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today and shedding some light, especially for those who are in business, doing good, trying to do good, and staying compliant. So really, really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you for having me, Dan. I appreciate it.